really, really do help out, and they speak. They will cut off any reporter
Oh yeah,
coming
usually
forward.
they have like a public speaker or whatever you call
Yeah.
it. No?
So that and all of our scenes are taped off.
Why is it always the same killer twice in a row?
I've seen a lot of doctors today, like when I was playing earlier before I got on. Maybe there's something coming out for doctors soon? Ah! Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, yeah, you do get desensitized, but at the same time, you have to...
Well, I would imagine you go in already being rather desensitized to it.
Well,
I don't think you would go into a job like that seeing something and immediately throwing up.
Truth be told, well, people do. That's the thing is, you can have a good amount of education. Yeah, you can have a good amount of education. You could have your master's, you know, and then you go into this field, and then the instant you have the smell of decomp and you throw up and you cannot do your job, you're fired. And then no company wants to work with you because you can't stomach what you're seeing. Before getting into this job, I worked at a daycare.
What?
Yeah, I worked at the daycare for 3 years, and then I applied for the job, and then
Bit of a change.
it is a huge change. But the daycare wasn't paying me enough, but I had to work at the daycare from Monday through Friday. Kids aren't bad, it's the parents that suck. So, like Monday through Friday I worked at the daycare, and then this job was looking for drivers on the weekend. So I was actually somebody that was removing the decedents from their locations. I was like, fuck, it's, you know, it's a weekend job, I don't mind, and it's extra cash, because, you know, when you live alone by yourself, you got bills to pay, and you have to pay all those bills by yourself. So I took the job, and the first day going in there, they're like, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to walk you to the back of the morgue, and you're going to see these people dead, and we're going to see if you can handle the job. Okay, no problem. Go there, first day, it's 2 kids on the table. I was like, whoa. That's rough. They look like dolls. It was super hard, but I was able to push through it because 1, I have bills to pay, and 2, if you just think of them as they're not there anymore, it's a lot easier. But for me, yeah. But at the same time, you also find out, like, 30 is still so young. Like, as soon as you're 40, then it's only like, okay. At that point, like, you're a grown adult. Like, from 20 to 30, you're just an adult. You're just learning to be an adult. But once you hit 40, then that's when you can say you're a grown adult. And then afterwards, like 50s, 60s, like, then that's where it's like, oh man, you think life is over for you? It's not. Old people have the most wildest sex parties, like crazy things like that. Like, it's...
Wait, what does that have to do with dead people?
Oh, just in general, like, so sometimes you can go to a scene where it's like, it's not something you're expecting. So, like, old people having, like, orgies, and then somebody takes drugs, and then they overdose, or there's too much excitement and their heart can't take it, and then you have to show up on scene, and there's everybody staring at you, and you're like, oh, I know what this is. Situations like that, or you know, overdoses are very, very prevalent in my area. So these 3 people went to a hotel, and they were doing drugs, and then the first dude overdosed on his drugs. So the 2 people in the hotel called 911. We came, took care of the guy, and then those 2 continued to party. Well, the second person decides to take that first guy's drug, and then they overdose and die. And so then we now have to go back to the area again, make sure there is no drugs, and then when we take away that second person, that third person doesn't. But the drug that they were overdosing on all have fentanyl in it, and that's like the major problem.
The George Floyd drug, or
it's just something that was being released in what was
yeah,
a long time.
Cocaine and heroin is like the most popular one, and then if you get like pills off the street, you gotta be like super careful. But I mean, like,
where I used to live, it was apparently released in pot.
That's
buying it from
horrifying.
You know, like now it's legal, so like there's like dispensaries and shit. But back like before.
That's,
you know, it just this town was really sketchy.
yeah, that's horrifying though. Oh my god. In pot, like, oh no. But so yeah, I mean, and that's what, you know, I deal with, and then it could just be something natural, like sweet old Betty is like 97 years old, and the family is sad because she's super healthy, so they don't know why she died, and in reality she had like hundreds of health complications that she never went to a doctor for. That, and she's like, you know, pressing 100, so so it's things like that where you have to be like calming for the family. You have to talk to them, like ask them questions about their loved one. That's where it goes into like the investigation part. So now you gotta track down if they had a doctor. You've got to see what type of medications were they on, things like that. Tracking down family, trying to talk to them to get any information you can, speaking to neighbors, speaking to whoever found this person. It's quite a bit, but I love my job. And then fun fact, I know in America it's open for everybody. I don't know about Canada, but in America, is anybody's death becomes a public record afterwards. So you can always like look up if you have if your friend died and their family didn't want to tell you what happened to them, you can just look up online. You can pay a fee and look up online, or you can request the records. They're free.
Oh. Hey,
He's tunneling me out.
Yeah. So I mean, it just depends. Prophet, you've got this. Keep
No,
going.
I don't.
Oh.
Because I can't throw the pallet when he does the shock. He's just tunneling me. He wants me dead. He wants that cotton candy booty.
He does. But it's also because, you know, that cotton candy jacket signifies, you know, you're a hacker. It's the jacket all the hackers wear.
Ouch.
I would like to get as good as you are on those skill checks. I cannot.
That time I wasn't even bothering with them really.
I still want to get that good. I would like to have those skills, sir, so if you're not using them, you can give them to me.
Keep losing my
this game is
flashlights.
going well.
I don't know. I got a little distracted thinking about dead people.
I am so sorry. I probably will not talk about that again because I don't want to like depress people. That's on me. I'm sorry.
I mean, that
doesn't bother me 100%. I don't care.
I just don't think I could do it. I don't think I could see it every day.
It gives you a new appreciation of life, like it truly does. And a lot of times, like, when you do this job, you give the answers to people who needed to have them. Like, if your loved one died and you didn't know how, we give you those answers, and like it like helps you.
Well, you see, they were at the sex orgy, and they took these drugs that the idiot before them took and died, and your loved one's a complete idiot, and they kind of deserved what they got. I just wanted to be the one to inform you.
It's said a little different.
Worded a little bit delicately.
But you know, it's like, hey,
what do you word that way?
Well, you see,
the
they
decedent took drugs that were tested positive for such and such, and due to their underlying health complications, along with taking this drug, it resulted in, most likely it's a cardiac arrest for them, so it resulted in cardiac arrest.
Let me ask you this one, because I have my suspicions about this. Do you have cases where it's clearly a death by something like autoerotic asphyxiation, and yet you have to kind of push it, like sweep it under the rug and call it like some kind of suicide, because it's just such an, like, it's just not something you want to say.
No,
like,
unfortunately, you have to put everything. So if you die from autoerotic asphyxiation, death by autoerotic asphyxiation, and then we have to take photos of you as you are. Now, this is where this gets a little saucy. Your family can have access to the photos of the scene of everything I've taken of you. Nobody else can, but your family can.
yeah.
So now you just got to be careful of how you die, because then your family is, they're going to see how it is that you did pass.
But doesn't it happen where, like, because I think there are cases of like famous people that have died that way, and maybe not on the legit reports, but like when their family puts it out there, they're like, oh, it was a suicide, and just nobody knew how depressed they really were. They didn't know that there were no signs of what they were going through.
So I think the only way I could sit there and say that is, like, let's say they were depressed and like they shot themselves with a gun through the head. Instead of saying gunshot wound suicide, we could say suicide via blunt force trauma.
No, I'm saying in the cases of where it was like autoerotic asphyxiation, but they publicized that the person hanged themselves out of, just suicide out of depression, but in reality they just accidentally killed themselves by trying to basically get sexually aroused.
Oh no, see, again, public record. As soon as you die, your death becomes public record in the US. So everything that's going to be put in, everything that I type up is going to be, or whoever types up goes to your scene. This investigator arrived on scene to a messy residence with clutter and debris everywhere. I go into the back bedroom where the decedent is dressed in lingerie and is found with a belt around their neck. But there's no sign of suspicions or foul play, so it's believed to be autoerotic asphyxiation. But I can't sit there and say what it is exactly. It's just the decedent is, that's for the doctor. So I would sit there and say the belt around the decedent's neck would indicate possible asphyxiation.
Okay, so who makes the final report? Like the final.
The pathologist, the doctor, the coroner.
So is it safe to say that if they're in, like, if it's a celebrity or something, that they might cover up for that kind of death?
Yes and no. Like, I know our doctors don't, but I mean, you could be in Hollywood and things could be different if you know somebody. However, let's say you have a kid that's super famous, okay? You and your wife are both divorced, but you both have custody of your child, okay? Let's say your famous kid, or famous actor child, who is, like, I don't know, 24 years old, we'll say that, kills himself by a certain way. Well, let's say you don't like the findings that the doctor had chosen, and your wife doesn't want to challenge it. She's like, he just died by suicide. But you want to challenge it? You can challenge it by having your child's remains sent to another autopsy pathologist. And then that pathologist could be like, well, I found these findings that would indicate that they did not die that way. And so now both pathologists would have to go to the board, to the courts, and fight with their findings on who was right and wrong.
So typical attorney type stuff, yeah, where it's just going to be like, so basically the doctor's most likely going to write something in favor of what you want based on the fact that you're paying them to.
No, so when you pay them, you're paying a fine. They're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, because autopsies are not cheap. Standard starting pay for one is $3,000. So again, if the first doctor, if your wife liked the findings from the first doctor, but you did not, you wanted that doctor's findings to be challenged, you could get another doctor. And then that doctor would then, you know, proceed with how they is. And if they have a different finding than the first doctor, now that's, you know, for both those doctors to have to deal with. And the courts. And so basically it'll turn into a he said, she said situation, but that's why pictures are so important. So like the pathologist, the first pathologist will take photos of the autopsy of whatever they need for the autopsy. The second pathologist will also take photos, and then they will both present their findings. And it'll go from there. But I know that we have like a lot of religious families that will sit there and say, oh, well, they didn't commit suicide. They would never commit suicide. Well, they were in a secured residence and the gun was in their hands. Well, they wouldn't have done it. You don't put suicide on there because they didn't commit suicide because we're holy. It's like, you can't do that. Like, it's unfortunate. It is what it is. They committed suicide. Pray for them if you're that upset.
Well,
but, you know,
the ones that I'm thinking about, like, that I could think of off the top of my head would be like, I didn't know the facts of this, but like supposedly Robin Williams, right? So they said that he killed himself, but I've also heard that it might have been autoerotic asphyxiation. And then he also was in a movie where his son in the movie, I don't know the name of it, died from autoerotic asphyxiation, and he covered it up and called it a suicide to like save face, basically, because it's like a humiliating way to say somebody died. But he found him dead and knew that that's how he died in the movie. But then in real life, Robin Williams died that way, and like there seems to be indication that it may have been that, but then, you know, everybody just says he died from suicide because whatever, life got to him and he couldn't deal with it, and nobody understood his struggles. And
that that's where it goes into play. It's who you know.